You guys enjoy what you're seeing here? All right. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram at ThinkFiveable. All right. Check us out on YouTube and subscribe. We have tons of great information, tons of great review sheets, PowerPoints, videos. We got it all. All right. So check it out at ThinkFiveable. All right. What are we going to do tonight? All right. We're going to look at a couple things. All right. We're going to look at what is sovereignty exactly. All right. We're also going to look at the difference between centripetal and centrifugal forces. You might notice that I have some of the letters in both of those words in bold. That's how I'm going to try and get you guys to remember the difference, because they're very similar words, centripetal and centrifugal, but there's a very easy way to remember the difference between the two, and I'll teach you that in a little bit. Stay tuned. That's a teaser. All right, then we're going to look at some multiple choice questions on sovereignty and these different forces, centripetal and centrifugal force. Okay, and we're going to see if you guys, if you learned anything, if you can figure out the difference between the two. These are very important. They have shown up on FRQs in the past. In fact, last year, they asked about devolution. We're going to be talking about devolution. And the centripetal and centrifugal forces have come up. Sovereignty has come up. Different types of government have come up. So all this stuff is very important. And the multiple choice questions I'm going to do with you guys, I took exactly from the AP Classroom website. Okay, so hopefully after I present all this stuff to you, you can tell me what it is. All right, everybody still doing well out there? We can see everything good? No questions? All right, thank you, Marcus. Thanks, Kayla. Thanks, Olivia. All right, okay. So what is sovereignty? All right, you guys might have talked about this with your teachers already. Sovereignty, when talking about a state, typically when I'm talking about a state, I'm talking about a country here, okay? It is that a country or a state can make its own laws without outside influence. They're not being influenced by any other state, any other country, all right? No one is allowed to, say this law is legal, this law is illegal, you can do this, you can't do that, all right? Although what we're going to look at is some countries do attempt to pressure at times when they disagree with some laws. We'll look at some examples in the next slide here, okay? So in the United States, we have a federal government. Can anybody tell me what a federal government is? What's up, Mateo? Anybody out there? What is a federal government? As opposed to a unitary government. Marcus, yes, when power is shared between local and central governments. All right, good stuff. We'll give you another, we'll give you go. All right, good stuff. Yes, that is absolutely correct. Shared power. All right. So in the U.S., okay, we have. Whoops, I'm a little bit ahead of myself here. All right. In the U.S., a state can make its own laws. It can govern without outside influence. As I said, the United States, we have federal laws and we have state laws. So as we said, with a federal government, there are different. There's different levels of government, different levels of law. All right. So some federal laws in the United States, immigration is not different from state to state. And now when I'm talking about states here, though, I am talking about the 50 states. All right. The smaller ones, as opposed to like a country up here. Okay. So immigration is the same throughout the entire United States. All right, it's the same thing with bankruptcy laws, with people declaring bankruptcy. Sometimes businesses can declare bankruptcy. All right, patent laws are uniform throughout the U.S. So if you invent something, you apply to a patent office. That is something that's done through the federal government. All right, as is copyright. Okay, so if you publish something, if you a book, a short story, even a photograph, you have copyright rights to that wherever you are, all right? Whether it's in New York, Texas, Pennsylvania, Florida, California, it doesn't matter, okay? But states have their own laws. So some things that are in states are licenses. All right, you might be thinking of driver's license, and I'm going to have that's a good example. I'm going to have some examples of how some of these license laws can vary from state to state. Okay, but licenses could also be like a fishing license or a hunting license. All right, so there are different types of licenses that are there, but also you have to have a license to practice law, to practice medicine, to teach in some states. So that can vary depending on which of the 50 states you are in. Marriage laws can also change who you can marry, who you can't marry, divorce, alimony, palimony, all of those things vary from state to state, as does personal injury, okay? So personal injury laws vary depending on where you're at. So just to prove it to you, all right, I have a question for you guys out there, all right? So how old do you have to be to drive in your state? So I have there's actually two parts of this. If you're going to post it, tell me how old do you have to be, and also tell me what state are you in. So 16, so 16 in Texas, all right. 15, Abril, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, all right. What state are you coming from where it's 15? So it's 16 in Texas. Where else are we coming from? 15, the permit. Everybody's coming from Texas? Oh, a lot of Texas people. You're not going to like the fact that who I root for in football, I don't think. All right, Texas. Okay, in Pennsylvania, which is where I am coming from, it is 16. Oh, you're all from the same school. Cool. So in Pennsylvania, it is 16 years old. But I guess the day you turn 16, you can get your permit, and then you have to have your permit for 6 months before you can get your license. I know we border New Jersey. In New Jersey, it's 17 years old, but I think they can get their permit at 16 and a half, and then at 17 they can get their license. So that varies. It is 15 in some states. I don't know exactly where. But it varies by state, okay? So that's an example of, federalism. All right, I got another question for you, all right? How old do you have to be to vote in your state? How old do you have to be to vote in your state? All right, we got a bunch of 18s there. That's right. It should be 18 everywhere. All right. That is a federal law that was made by the 26th Amendment in the 1970s, where they decided that it was 18 everywhere. Prior to that, the states made up how old you were. So it was 21 in some states. It was 18 in others, 35. Right. Yeah. It's 35 to be president, though. That's another federal law. But these are federal laws is how old you are to vote, where a state law is how old you are to drive. Okay. All right. Good stuff. Let's continue here. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys this guy right here. That is my boxer bruiser who desperately wants to drive. Every time I jump out of my Jeep, he jumps in the driver's seat. You can see his tongue is too big for his face there, or for his head. It hangs out. I don't think in any state it is legal for a dog to drive. I'll have to look that up. Okay, so sovereignty internationally. Okay, we're gonna look at some international laws here. All right, I'm gonna give you a couple of examples. This is the flag of South Africa. Up until the 1990s, can any of you guys out there tell me what law governed in South Africa that was very controversial throughout the world? In South Africa, what law was very controversial? Oh, Farrell's in the house. All right, good stuff. Apartheid, that's right. Not sure about the spelling there. I'm not the best speller either, all right? But apartheid was a very strict separation of races. Okay, it was very discriminatory. That is true, Marcus. It was strict separation. According to the Rubenstein textbook, there were 4 different races. It was black, white, mixed, and Asian. All right. And when I talk about that, it was a strict separation of the states. It was it depended on where you lived, where you worked, where you traveled to. Everything was denoted by what your race was. People had to carry little cards around. If you worked in a white section of South Africa, you had to have papers that said that you were allowed to be there. Okay. It was very strict. Now, as I said, with sovereignty, you're free from outside influence, right? But there were a number of countries that imposed sanctions on South Africa, wouldn't trade with South Africa because of the discrimination, as Marcus said there, with apartheid. I know that a number of musicians wouldn't perform there. They were not allowed in the Olympics for a number of years because the international community didn't like this idea of this of apartheid, of this strict separation of the state and of the races. So what happened was eventually under F.W. de Klerk was the president of South Africa in the early 1990s. He declared the African National Congress to be legal again, and therefore a number of the members of the African National Congress these political prisoners were released from prison, and possibly the most famous, who became the first democratically elected president of South Africa. Does anybody know who that is? So was it racism or ethnic discrimination? I would say it was both. That's a good question. They were definitely discriminating against effectively everyone that was not white. Okay, and so it was depending on your race, more than your ethnicity. All right, if you were black, mixed, which in their definition was one white parent, one black parent, okay, or Asian, you weren't allowed to go somewhere. U.S. everyone seeks opportunities. Yeah. Okay, Marcus. Yes, that is true. But South Africa recently, well, not too recently, in the 1990s, they did away with apartheid. Good. And insert fandom here. All right, got Mandela. Right, Nelson Mandela was released from prison after 27 years, very long time, and then was elected president of South Africa. Okay. All right. So that is a good example of sort of some crazy laws that can go on. And I have another one. Hello, Ryan Park. Good to see you. Okay. So we did South Africa. Whoops. What? This is the flag of Singapore. Okay. Singapore is a little micro nation in southeastern Asia. Okay. In the 1990s, again, there was an 18-year-old kid, probably a little bit older than you guys out there, that was in Singapore, who was caught vandalizing cars. He was spray painting cars. He was caught. He was sentenced. Can anybody have any guesses of what they did to him? What did they do to this student in Singapore? Beating, torture, kind of. That's what some people thought about it, all right? What he was actually done was he was lashes. Very good, Olivia. That is absolutely correct. He did not get the death penalty. No, it wasn't quite that extreme, but it still was pretty bad. He was sentenced to 6 strokes of a cane. So what they would do is they tie you down, all right, and they whip you with a cane. So there was people were going bonkers over this. They thought that this was crazy. So the international community was in an uproar. In fact, the president of the United States, Bill Clinton, actually called and appealed this decision that he didn't deserve the 6 lashes. That's crazy. So Singapore, which again is allowed to make up their own laws, they did relinquish And he did not get 6 lashes with the cane. He got 4 lashes with the cane. All right. He got 4. So he still was hit with this cane. So yikes is right. Yeah, it was bad. All right. It is very, very strict. Okay. All right. I have one more example for you guys here. That was South Africa. That's the flag of Singapore. All right. This is the flag of Saudi Arabia. You might have talked about this in your classes. In Saudi Arabia, what did women just very recently get the right to do for the first time in Saudi Arabia's history? Anybody tell me? Let's see what you guys got. Very good. Drive. That's right. So women were just given the right to drive for the first time. Okay, they're allowed to drive by themselves. That's right. I think prior to that, they were allowed to drive with a male relative, but they had to drive with someone. So for the first time ever, just recently, within the last 2 or 3 years, the king made a new law that women are allowed to drive there. One of the reasons that he is doing that is because he's trying to boost the economy. He's trying to get women involved in the workforce. What you'll find when you guys get to I'm not sure if you got to the unit on development yet, all right? But there's something called the Human Development Index, and there's also the Gender Inequality Index. What you will find is in the countries where women are doing the best, they are the most developed countries in the world, all right? Oh, it looks like you guys in Texas, you're already there. That's good stuff, all right, that you have learned about that, all right? A lot of times, the most developed countries are the countries where women are doing the best. So you would think that these undeveloped countries, they would just attempt to get women more involved, to get them in the workforce. That's kind of what Saudi Arabia is attempting to do, all right? By allowing them to drive, all right, now they can drive to and from jobs and occupations, be more involved, and hopefully that will help out. But again, the fact that in 2017 or 2018 that women first got the right to drive, that's a mind-boggling idea, okay? All right, so good. Hopefully you guys have a grasp of what sovereignty is at this point, all right? If you have any questions, we can look at it. All right, so there's some challenges to sovereignty, all right? There's some political, some economic, some cultural, and technological, that says changes. It should say challenges, all right, there, okay? You guys might have talked about devolution. Devolution is the breakdown of a state. I'm trying to define it in as simple of terms as possible. Devolution is also very important. It has come up not once on the FRQs, but twice on the FRQs, including last year. There was a question about devolution. All right. Now, there's sort of 2 types of devolution. There's devolution where a country turns into, it breaks up from one country into more countries. So I have a couple of examples here for you. All right. The Soviet Union. All right. The Soviet Union broke up in the early 1990s, broke up into 15 different sovereign states. So 15 different countries, all right? There were the Baltic countries. You got Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. You had the European countries, Belarus, Moldova, and the Ukraine. You have the Central Asian nations, which you might know as the Stans. You have Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Turkmenistan. Boom, got all the Stans, all right? And then you also have the European nations, all right, which is Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Russia. All of those countries used to be one country. It used to just be the Soviet Union, but they have all since broken up. They have their own governments. Now they make their own laws, all right? They've devolved into their own smaller states, okay? Yugoslavia is another good example, all right? Maybe you guys have heard of the term Balkanization before. That is the breakup of a state due to specific ethnicities, okay? So Yugoslavia used to be one communist nation that broke up around the same time as the Soviet Union in the early 1990s when their president, Tito, died. And then all of a sudden there was a civil war that went on and broke up into 6 different countries. All of those countries are made up of different ethnicities. So you have the Bosnians in Bosnia Herzegovina. All right, you have the Croats in Croatia. All right, the Macedonians. You have the Montenegros in Montenegro, makes sense. The Serbs in Serbia, and the Slovenes in Slovenia. So that's Balkanization is another term. It's similar to devolution, not exactly the same thing, but it's similar, but it's a breakup specifically because of the ethnicities. For any of you guys sports fans out there, there's a fantastic 30 for 30 on this that is called Once Brothers. And it talks about the Yugoslavian national basketball team, Vlade Divac, who played for the Lakers and the Kings. I think he is Serbian. And then there was like Drazen Petrovic and Toni Kukoc, who were both Croatian, okay, and they were very good friends. And then when the civil wars broke out, their friendship was severely affected. So that is an example of Balkanization. Then we have Sudan. Sudan broke up into one of the, right, if the South won the 1860s, we would have had, I wouldn't call that Balkanization. It would have been devolution, all right? It's not Balkanization because it's really not a difference in the ethnicities. The people in the North and the people in the South are effectively the same ethnicity. So it is a form of devolution. But not a form of Balkanization. I wouldn't make sure you understand that distinction. Okay. But can anybody tell me what is the youngest country in the world? What is the youngest country in the world? USA. No, it's not USA. All right. It is South Sudan. That is correct. All right. South Sudan broke away. I think it was 2004 or 2005. That was there's some religious differences there, okay, but they got a lot of differences. All right, what's the difference between Balkanization and devolution again? So Balkanization is the breakup of a country specifically for ethnic reasons. All right, devolution can be the breakup of a country, but doesn't necessarily have to be. It can be just regions of a country getting more autonomy. So Balkanization is a form of devolution, but it's more specific for the ethnicity. Okay. Oh man. All right. So let's continue with this. All right. So those were examples. Whoops, we'll get to that. All right. So those were examples. Czechoslovakia is another example. Czechoslovakia broke up into 2 countries. It's pretty easy to remember what 2 countries or what 2 states that is. It is the Czech Republic and Slovakia. All right, so they have devolved into smaller states. Now, devolution does not necessarily mean that it is a breakup of a larger state into smaller states, like in the Soviet Union, Yugoslavia, Sudan, and Czechoslovakia. All right, there are some examples where there's just regions getting more autonomy. So in Canada, there's actually 2 examples, all right, of devolution. Can anybody give me either of the 2 examples in Canada? Quebec, very good. Good, Quebec is definitely one of them, all right. In Quebec, they voted to, there was a vote to see if they were going to remain part of Canada or if they were going to become independent. The vote was pretty close. I think it was about 54-46. And they actually voted to remain part of Canada. Okay, but Canada passed some laws, all right, to give Quebec more autonomy. It is similar to Brexit. Brexit is another good example of that. Okay, and with devolution, especially the United Kingdom, all right, that is kind of 4 different states that are all really one state. That is another very good example. Okay, where's Brexit? Brexit is in the United Kingdom. All right, they voted out of the European Union, and we'll talk about that too. We'll talk about how that is a challenge to sovereignty. at times. Right, Scotland had the same thing. Scotland actually voted out. That was a really close one, but they voted to remain part of the United Kingdom. Does anybody know, besides Quebec, all right, one of the things, by the way, that they did in Quebec, they made French an official language. So there are 2 official languages of Canada, all right? They made French and English the official languages. The francophones, the people that are native French speakers, all right, the Quebecois, that's fun to say. You guys should check that out. All right, they are the natives of Quebec. All right, that's what they did. Does anybody know there's 3 territories in Canada? Does anybody know what the name of the newest territory in Canada is? That's my other example of devolution in Canada. No, Nunavut. Mateo's all over it. Awesome, Mateo. That is correct. All right. So Nunavut was made a territory recently within the last, I'm going to say 15 or 20 years. Don't quote me on that. But that was native. That was the Native Americans that are from there. You guys might think of them more as like Eskimos or the Inuit. Okay, they are from Nunavut, and they were given more autonomy to rule their own land up there. All right, almost got the same land. I know how Mateo knows that one because he's got a fantastic human geography teacher. That's how he knows that. Okay, all right. So that was again in Canada. All right, 2 examples of sovereignty. You have Quebec. And you have the Nunavut people, okay? All right. So what about in Belgium? Belgium is another good example, okay? In Belgium, they're broken up into like 4 different areas of Belgium. In the north, they are Flemish, and they speak Dutch. And the area in northern Belgium is called Flanders, like the awesome neighbor on The Simpsons, great googly moogly. And in the southern part of Belgium, it is called Wallonia, and they speak French, okay? And then in the capital area is Brussels, all right? It's like its own certain area, all right? They have their own laws in there as well. And then there's another little section of it, like in the southwestern area, that is more German speakers, okay? And those 4 different areas have more autonomy. They have different laws depending on where they're at. I heard somebody else that actually streamed on Fiveable last year gave it a good example of like a couple that's not really getting along, but they decided it'd just be too expensive to get divorced. So in Belgium, they're gonna stay together. They're not gonna break up these 4 areas, these 2 large areas of Flanders in the north and Wallonia in the south, and then you have the section of Brussels is in between the 2 of them. And then you have German speakers as well. Okay, in Spain, like in Canada, there are 2 examples, okay, of devolution. Can anybody give me either of the 2 examples of people in Spain that are trying to get more and more autonomy? Marcus, yes, that is one of them. Good stuff. Catalonia is one of them. Catalonia is a section of Spain in the northeastern part, okay, and the Basques. That's right. Very good, Marcus. All right. So Catalonia actually recently, within the last year or 2, voted that they did not want to be part of Spain at all. Okay. The Spanish government didn't take too kindly to that. All right, and it has not gone through. And no country in the world has recognized Catalonia. Catalonia, one of the reasons they voted out, it said on that slide, for economic reasons. The Catalonians do very, very well for themselves, right? And they feel like they don't want to be tied into the rest of Spain and some of the areas where the economy might not be as good. So they are, they wanted to vote out. They wanted their own autonomy. They wanted to be their own country. It didn't happen. Okay, they have their own language, they have their own culture. Okay, so in Catalonia, that's one of the interesting areas that's voted out. And the Basques are similar. They're in northern Spain as well. They didn't want to be part of Spain. They wanted to vote out, all right, but weren't able to do that. It's not a good idea for Spain to get rid of some of their most prosperous regions. Countries don't want to lose area. You know, that wouldn't be good. Okay. All right. Now let's get into, oh, we didn't even talk about this yet. All right. Advances in communication technology can also be a challenge to sovereignty. A fantastic example of this is the Arab Spring. Okay, the Arab Spring was really, does anybody know, there's one specific form of social media that helped the Arab Spring. Does anybody know what that is? What form of social media helped the people join together? No, it wasn't Snapchat. That's a good guess. You gotta go to what do old people use? Old people like me, like Mr. Scanlon. Good, Olivia. They used Facebook. That's right. So they could film things, all right, on their phone, all right, how the government was treating some of the people that were protesting, all right, and they could send it around. But they could also talk about where they're going to meet up, where they're going to go, and the government really couldn't shut that down. They couldn't stop that. All right, so Tunisia and Libya, Egypt, Yemen were all able to overthrow their unitary governments, their autonomous governments, all right, and become more democratic, okay, and elect new leaders sometimes for the first time in decades. Okay, good. So that's how that can be a threat to sovereignty. Then we have supranational organizations. All right, supranational organizations can help with environmental and transnational challenges. So for environmental reasons, think of like the Kyoto Protocol or the Paris Accords, which are trying to get a number of countries to reduce their carbon emissions. Okay, to reduce the amount of plastic that they are, dumping into the seas, things like that. All right. And transnational challenges, going from one country to another. Somebody mentioned Brexit earlier. Okay, if you are a member of the European Union, it's very easy to travel from one country to another. If any of you guys have ever been out of the country, you'll know when you land in the United States, all right, you have to go through customs. All right, when you go through customs, and when you go through immigration, all right, there's two lines. There's an international line and there is an American line. Okay, well, when you're traveling through Europe, there are two lines, all right? There's an EU line and there's international. There's everybody else. Okay, so it's very easy to travel from country to country in the European Union, which when we talk about Brexit, one of the unintended consequences of Brexit might be, traveling between Ireland and Northern Ireland might be a much more difficult at this point because you're now traveling from one EU country to another non-EU country, which is going to make it more difficult. So some people think that maybe an unintended consequence of Brexit, if it does go through, would be that the people in Northern Ireland might just vote to be part of Ireland. We'll see if that happens or not. Okay, so it create economies of scale. All right, trade agreements, military alliances. So things like NATO. All right, and ComCon. If you guys have learned about that in American history. Okay, was like, one of them, the Warsaw Pact, all right, was the people decided with the Soviets, and then you had the people that decided with the United States during the Cold War. Okay, trade agreements like NAFTA, which is between Mexico, the United States, and Canada. Okay, and then you have economies of scale. All right, again, a big part of the European Union is trading with that, and that's one of the reasons trading with all these countries, all right, free trading. But a lot of people in the United Kingdom that voted for Brexit to leave the European Union was because they felt like, why should the economic downturn in Greece affect the economy of the United Kingdom? Okay, so it can challenge the sovereignty of states. So because it can limit the economic and political action. So as opposed to specifically looking at the country or the state Specifically, you have more states that you have to think of, again, like with the European Union, okay? You know, the economy of one country can affect the economy of, you know, another one. So when you pass laws, it might be with more the European Union in mind than your specific state or country, okay? So here are some examples of, you guys might have talked about supranational organizations, all right? So we have the United Nations, all right, is the UN, all right? We have the African Union here, NATO, which I mentioned earlier, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, all right? ASEAN, I'm not sure if it's called ASEAN, but I think it should be called ASEAN, right? That is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, all right? The OAS is the Organization of American States. Every country or state in the Western Hemisphere is a part of that one. All right, the Commonwealth is countries that used to be part of the United Kingdom. All right, how we doing, guys? ASEAN, again, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. That's what ASEAN stands for. NATO is the North American Treaty Organization. Okay. Any other questions? All right, I feel like I'm running behind, so let's go to my next slide here. Boom, we didn't even get to centripetal and centrifugal forces. Okay, so let's do this. All right, centripetal forces, they're the forces that bring people together. They bring countries together. All right, they join them in. All right, and notice I bolded 3 letters there, P-E-T. It's like a pet. All right, it's something that you want to bring close to you. I was going to have my dog, my little dog Gretel, not the big one, Bruiser, with the long tongue. I was going to have Gretel here with me tonight. Unfortunately, I'm not at home. I'm at school. I had a bocce game. We won, woohoo. So I got back to school late, so that's why I'm streaming from here. All right. But centripetal, it's something you want to pet, something you want to bring close to you. I've heard other teachers that use, if you look at the last 5 letters, a petal, right? A flower is something that you might give to someone that you like because you want them to be closer to you. Okay. Some examples of this, all right, a shared culture can bring people together. Think like in the United States of the 4th of July. Okay, infrastructure, a good infrastructure, right? If it's easy to travel anywhere in that country, all right, that can bring people together. Okay, and ethno-nationalism, right? If you're proud of your nationality, if you're proud of your ethnicity, all right, a good example of ethno-nationalism is Japan. Almost all the people that live in Japan are ethnically Japanese. That's the best example of a nation state or ethno-nationalism. Okay, Denmark is another good example. About 90% of the people that live in Denmark are Danes. Okay, so that brings people together. They're proud of that. All right, that's a centripetal force. Okay, then we have centrifugal forces. All right, that is the opposite of centripetal. All right, as opposed to bringing people together, it's pulling people apart. Okay, and notice I have 2 letters in bold there. I won't repeat them, but you guys can see what they are, and hopefully that will remind you, right, that this is something that pulls people apart. All right, so some examples here are stateless nations. The Kurds are the best example of a stateless nation. They are in an ethnicity that they're spread amongst about 4 different countries. It's Iraq, Iran, Syria, and Turkey. Okay, after World War I or sometime early in the 20th century, they were promised their own country. It was going to be Kurdistan. That never happened. Okay, so they're spread amongst all these countries. They're a minority in every single one of these countries. All right, that can pull people apart. All right, different ethnicities in different states. Okay, uneven development can also do the same thing. A good example again is Catalonia. Catalonia does very well for itself. Well, not all parts of Spain do, so they won it out. That's a centrifugal force. They voted out. All right, and then an ethnic nationalist, similar to ethno-nationalism. All right, but an ethnic nationalist is effectively loves their ethnicity and their nationality, but doesn't like anybody else because of that. All right. A good example of a centrifugal force today is our current administration. Whatever your opinion of it is, just walk into any restaurant or store or establishment, all right, and say something good or something bad about President Trump. All right. He seems like he's a very polarizing figure. All right. It is very centrifugal. All right. And I'm not taking one side or the other. It's just a good example of a centrifugal force. Got Chooks. Hey, Autumn, what's up? All right, Autumn's here. Good stuff. Okay, moving on. We're going to look at some examples, all right? Or I want you guys to tell me, all right, if you think these are, we're going to play a quick game. We're going to play, oh, let's get my, all right, we have centripetal or centrifugal, people. All right, now, do you think that this is more centripetal or more centrifugal? All right, do you think, number one, the national anthem of the United States or any country would be a centripetal or a centrifugal force? What do you guys think? Gabriel says centripetal, pedal. All right. Unless you're a leftist. All right. Good. I would say that it is more centripetal as well. It is typically something that bonds people together. However, there are, you know, a couple of years ago on my test, that was an example of things that were centripetal, and I had the national anthem, but I had to take it off of my test because why recently was the national anthem? Was it in the news by people? Right, it was an athlete. Let me know who was the athlete. It was the NFL thing. That's right. Who was the guy that sparked this controversy? Right, he was kneeling during the national anthem. Does anybody know what his name was? He was a quarterback for the 49ers. Colin Kaepernick. That's right. So Colin Kaepernick, so all of a sudden it became a centrifugal force. Some people were for Kaepernick. He's trying to bring awareness to Black Lives Matter, all right? And, you know, some of the police brutality that was going on across the nation. So some people were pro-Kaepernick, some people were anti-Kaepernick. Some people thought it was terrible. It's disrespectful to the flag. It's disrespectful to, you know, the people that are serving for us, okay? So that did become centrifugal, okay? So which one is it more? Well, it kind of depends, okay? It can be either. That's why I'm not saying what is this specifically centripetal or specifically centrifugal. It can kind of be either. All right, so let's look at my next example here. All right, we have the national anthem. All right, number two. What about a common language? You guys think a common language is more centripetal or centrifugal? What do we think? We have centripetal. Everybody thinks pretty much centripetal. All right, yeah, absolutely. If they're sharing a language, all right, it is. It's typically a good thing, all right, in that it's going to bring people together, okay? But there are some examples where I guess it could be centrifugal. I am from Philadelphia, and we are known for our cheesesteaks. In fact, if you've ever watched a football game or a basketball game or a baseball game on the national media, they always show two of the most famous cheesesteak places. They show Pat's and Geno's. If you ever come to Philadelphia, you got to check them out. All right. If you don't care about your heart, but you want something that tastes really well. All right. Their cheesesteaks are really, really good. Now, there was a bunch of controversy at Pat's for a long time because when you went to order something, there was a sign outside that said speak English only. And they would not serve someone unless you asked for it in English. Okay. Well, that's sort of discriminatory against people that don't speak English. Okay. So again, is it more centripetal or centrifugal? I would say it's more centripetal, but given some examples, it could be centrifugal. All right. So everything can be centripetal or centrifugal. I guess it depends on how you are looking at it. So I'm trying to think if there's anything that's like 100% centripetal or centrifugal. I don't know that I can think of one off the top of my head. Savion, that's a good question. I think things are more centripetal, all right, or more centrifugal, but depending on the example, they can be one or the other, all right? All right, let's continue here. The last one I have here is sports. Do you guys think sports are centripetal or centrifugal? Marcus says both, all right. We have fandom saying centrifugal. Some say even, both, depends. Yeah, I kind of agree. All right, let's talk about the Olympics. You think the Olympics are more, the Olympics are centripetal. That's right. Good call. All right. The Olympics are more centripetal. They're bringing people together. You probably don't care about curling, right? Or about, figure skating or track and field, the high jump, the pole vault until there's an American involved, right? And then we're rooting for that American, all right? It is bringing us together, okay? But it can be centrifugal, right? You guys are from Texas. What football team do you guys root for down there in Texas? The Redskins? Okay. Green Bay? Oh, all right, we got some Texas Tech fans, it looks like, all right? Then we get the Cowboys. That was my point. I'm an Eagles fan, all right? I'm from Philadelphia, all right? So I root for the Eagles, okay? But that can be centrifugal in that if you're a Redskins fan or, a Packers fan or a Texans fan or a Dallas fan, all right, you're not going to like me, all right? That might change your opinion of me, okay? So it can be centrifugal. It can be centripetal, all right? Good question. All right. Texas Tech fans out there, good stuff. All right. Let's continue here. Oh, I got some multiple choice questions already. All right, let's look at it. Good stuff. Hopefully you guys understand better sovereignty and centrifugal forces here. All right, multiple choice question. All right, a good example of a centripetal force in political geography is, what do we think here, guys? A, B, C, D, or E? What do we think? What's a good example of a centripetal force? Let's see what you guys think. We got D. D with a question mark. D. Can you guys still see the question or no? No, you can't, right? Okay, that's what I thought. All right. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. So D is absolutely correct. All right. So if you look at this one, all right. Now, somebody asked what the primate city is. You guys might not have gotten to what primate cities are, and I'll explain what that is in a second. All right. But you could have used process of elimination here. All right. The existence of a different language regions. Well, different languages would be centrifugal, like we talked about in Belgium with the Dutch speakers in the north and the French speakers in the south. All right. Rugged topography. All right. That means like a very mountainous region. It's difficult to get from place to place. That would be more centrifugal. That would be separating people. Religious diversity and conflict, that's not a good thing either. Pakistan and India don't get along very well because when they broke up, it was predominantly Hindu in India, predominantly Muslim in Pakistan. They still don't get along too well with that. All right. And let's look at E. A poorly developed road network is similar to this rugged topography. All right. It's separating people. It's making it more difficult to travel to and from places. All right. So what is a primate city? All right. A primate city is it's a city that is way bigger than any other city in that country. You guys might have learned about the rank size rule. The rank size rule is like that the largest country or the largest city in a country, all right, is about twice the size of the second largest country and about 3 times the size of the third largest country, about 4 times the size of the fourth largest country or first largest city, okay? But a primate city is the exception to that rule, okay? So Reykjavik in Iceland is a very good example. Reykjavik is made up of 200,000 people. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot of people for a city in the United States, but when you think about that, Iceland only has 300,000 people, then you're like, oh, wow, okay? So a primate city, if most people are living in the same area, that is a centripetal force, right? There's more job opportunities. That's typically, that's where like the government is located. That's where a lot of people are located, all right? So that is a centripetal force, okay? Good. All right, let's look at our next question here. Boom. The Canadian government created the new territory of Nunavut in order to do what? We talked about this a little bit. Let's see how much you guys are paying attention. A, B, C, D, or E, what do we got? Come on. All right, what do you guys think? We got B or D, or we got somebody with an A or B. All right. It is B. You guys are saying B is correct. All right. Recreate the pre-1912 boundary of Quebec. Quebec and Nunavut don't have anything to do with each other. Quebec is in the southeastern part of the country. Nunavut is in the north. All right. C, facilitate the exploration of mineral resources in the Northwest Territories. It's not part of the territory of Nunavut. Grant autonomy to the Cree and Mohawk people living in eastern Canada. If you thought about that one, that's true, but I shouldn't say that's not true, but that's not a bad guess. In that, again, Nunavut is the Native Americans that are living there. All right, Canadian fishing rights in the Atlantic Ocean. Nunavut doesn't border the Atlantic Ocean, all right? But they're recognizing the territorial rights of Indigenous people in that area. Okay, all right. Good stuff. I got two more for you guys, and then we'll wrap it up. This is a bit of a long one, but I have faith you can do it. Which of the following correctly compares the impact of centripetal forces at the local scale with the impact of centripetal forces at the national scale? What do we got? A, B, C, D, or E? What do we think? Let's see. What do we got? Oh, we get this one right. All right, you're gonna get a goal here. Somebody doesn't understand. We got some people saying B, some people saying E. All right, let's take a look. All right. People are saying E, all right? It's not E. E would be correct if it said centrifugal forces at the local scale and national scale may lead to failed states. But centripetal forces, if they're bringing people together, it's not going to cause a failed state. D, centripetal forces may result in nationalism at the local scale, but not at the national scale. No, nationalism effectively is going to be take effect everywhere in the country. All right, so it's not D. C, centripetal forces may lead to a stateless nations at the national scale, but not at the local scale. It's not going to lead to stateless nations. And again, centripetal is bringing people together. All right. B, centripetal forces at both the local scale and national scale may lead to increased cultural cohesion. You guys that said B, you got it. All right. That's what it is. All right. It's going to lead to cultural cohesion. All right. To more people coming together because of that. All right. So it is B. A, centripetal forces may cause uneven development at the local scale, but not at the national scale. Centripetal forces are not going to cause uneven development. Centrifugal forces might, but not centripetal forces. All right. Okay. We're going to leave you one last question. Let's do it. I have faith that you guys can get this one. All right. Any questions about that one? One more. Yes. Savion, let's do it. One more. Boom. At some point in their recent history, all the following countries became divided into two political entities as a result of cultural or ideological conflict, except which one? Is it A, B, C, D, or is it A? What do we got? Looks like everybody pretty much thinks E. Everybody. Good stuff. That's right. Okay. So Korea broke up in the 1940s and 50s into, or actually, I guess it was post-World War II, all right, into North Korea and South Korea, and is still North Korea and South Korea today. Okay. Vietnam was North Vietnam and South Vietnam. That is why we fought the Vietnam War. That is unfortunately a war that we lost, which is why Vietnam is one Vietnam today. Okay, but was North Vietnam and South Vietnam until the 1970s. All right, Germany until very recently, at least in my lifetime, maybe not in your lifetime, okay? But Germany was East Germany and West Germany, all right? And Ireland, Ireland is separated into, I think it's 32 counties. 26 of them are the Republic of Ireland, and the northeastern 6 counties are Northern Ireland, which is part of the United Kingdom. All right, Japan is not. Japan was in one of those FRQs that I talked about, where they asked about the difference between a federal government and a unitary government. Japan is a good example of a unitary government. All right, good stuff, guys. Germany split. Well, Germany was East Germany and West Germany after World War II. Okay. All right. So to review, hopefully you guys learned that sovereignty is what? When we're talking about sovereignty, what are we talking about, guys? Give it to me your own definition. The right to laws. Good. Yeah, that's right. All right. It's right to make your own laws. All right. And what is the difference between centripetal and centrifugal forces? Good. Right. When a country has control over its own affairs, that's sovereignty. Good stuff. What's the difference between centripetal and centrifugal force? Right. It's pulls and breaks. Which one's which? Good. Centripetal pulls together. Centrifugal breaks apart. All right. Pet is towards. Right. Those other two letters are breaking apart. I won't repeat that one, Kayla, but I'm glad that that you understood that you got that down. All right. Good stuff. Does anybody have any other? Oh, Mrs. Banner. Yeah, that's how I teach my students. All right. I just underline a couple letters in centripetal and centrifugal so they can tell the difference between the two. All right. Anybody have any other questions? Sci-fi philosophy, we want something 100% centripetal. I like that idea. All right, yeah, like maybe in dystopian literature, like 1984 or Fahrenheit 451 or something. Yeah, you guys are thinking more like Star Trek or Star Wars. All right, yeah, okay, good stuff. All right, remember, guys, if you enjoyed what you saw, hopefully you did. All right, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram @ThinkFiveable. Go to YouTube and subscribe. All right. Hopefully you guys had fun. Good luck. I'll be back in a couple weeks. Again, AP Human Geography every single Tuesday at 7 o'clock. All right, guys. Peace.